Hello, one and all, and welcome to the final session of our five-part webinar series focused on winning and keeping high-value customers throughout the customer journey. On behalf of Finch and Flocksy, I'm Mike Martis, and I'll be your host for this final session, Data-Driven Success Using Insights to Monitor, Measure, and Grow. We'll be focusing on how online brands should collect, consolidate, comprehend, and use their data to aim squarely at growth. But before we get started, just want to let the audience know that the Q&A section is open, and you'll see a little question mark at the top of your screen there. You can submit questions whenever you want. We have about 15 minutes planned at the end to get to those questions. So if you have any, pop them into the Q&A, and we'll get to those after the panel discussion. But speaking of the panel, let's get to meet our panel. Head of Strategy and Insights at Keen, Justin Jefferson is here. Thank you, Justin. You saw in the little intro video, it was supposed to be Greg, the CEO. Justin was awesome enough to step in and fill those big shoes for us. Thank you, Justin, for being here. CEO of Flocksy, Sam Ryan, is here. Sam, good to see you. And David Gray, Head of Product at Finch. What a panel. I feel less intelligent already. You guys are awesome. Let's get into this thing. We're very excited to have you all here to chat about growth, but let's get to know the panel a little bit. Justin, can you tell us a little bit about what Keen does and what you do at Keen?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Mike. So Keen Decision System, we leverage software to analyze, optimize, and forecast the impact of your marketing investments across all channels. So we deliver actual insights by infusing your performance data into our AI engine, and we use that to model the past, present, and future scenarios. To date, we've helped, I think, optimize a little over 4 billion in marketing spending so far. And as the head of strategy and insights, I really work with our company to kind of advance our offerings, both on the software side as well as the service side, helping to tackle new challenges as they come along.
Great, concise. It's almost like you knew that you knew how to do that. That was awesome. Sam, tell us about Flock. We know about Flocksy a little bit. I mean, you guys have co-sponsoring the webinar. Tell us about Flocksy and Sam.
Hey there, thanks, Mike. Flocksy provides unlimited graphic design and creative services, so like video editing, web design, copywriting, all that type of stuff for one flat rate. And you get a custom team, and they can work on all your projects. My name is Sam Ryan, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Flocksy. We started it about 8 years ago and have been in the space for a while now, and been adding on services and getting quicker turnaround times and everything as time goes on. So yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, David from Finch. David, tell us about Finch and what you do at Finch.
Yeah, I feel like people probably know a little bit about Finch if they've tuned into any of these webinars so far. But Finch is a performance marketing agency focused on the e-commerce space. We are a tech-enabled agency, hence my role. So I'm the head of product here at Finch. Prior to that, I wore several different hats in the company, and I've worked in agencies for quite a while. But I lead our product strategy and vision as we bring it forward and build a tool that kind of promotes data transparency and trust. As brands work with an agency, we make sure that we've got goal and budget alignment with customers so that we are totally aligned with what their business level targets are. And then we add all that with some, augment all that with some communication and collaboration elements as well to make sure that we're always able to communicate and contextualize data effectively to our customers.
Fantastic. And I'm excited to dig into kind of all the juicy data bits with each of you. But before we get that going, let's get the audience involved, get the brain woken up this morning. Well, depending on where you are this morning, this afternoon. Let's launch a quick poll here. The poll question to get us started here: what data sources does your brand use most often in analysis of growth and success? And we have a few options here. Don't be shy. Jump in there. Come on. There's site traffic analytics. This is going to be like your Google Analytics or whatever you use to measure your site. Channel performance data, which is going to be your data that you're going to get from Google Ads or PMax or Amazon, wherever you're advertising. And shopping cart data. This is going to be your conversion data on your store if you have one, or conversion data in general. Email and SMS data, or just a healthy mix of all of these. And let's wait a couple seconds. About half of the audience has voted. It's okay if you're in listen only mode, no worries. Let's go ahead and end that poll real quick, share the results. You can see there, healthy mix of all these. That's kind of not surprising. This day and age, you're gonna have to use all the data you can get your hands on. Thus, this webinar, right? So let's talk about it a little bit. Just wanted to jump in with some opening questions for each of you. It's basically the same question, but for each of you. So, each of you focus on different parts of marketing, but there's so much data involved in all parts of marketing. So I just wanted to get into a little bit. Let's start with Sam there. When we think creative analytics and how to measure success there, how do you think about that, and how does Flocksy measure their success as they interact with clients, and also the outputs of those? How do the clients actually measure the success of the creative that you make?
That's a great question. So I think a lot of people don't realize when they're measuring a creative, it's actually a full 360. You're not just measuring the creative itself and bringing somebody onto your website or even into a demo or even signing up. It's keeping that customer, keeping them happy, looking at churn, looking at retention, and then when you lose that customer, trying to get them back again, because customers and businesses go through all types of different times when they need you, when they don't. So you're looking to build a relationship with that client, and it starts with the creative. So that creative may be a really high performing creative, but it could be lying to the client. It might not be telling them the whole truth. So when you look at an ad or look at what you're telling the client, it's important that you make sure that it's what you can back up what you're telling them, basically. So at Flocksy, what we look at is we say, okay, so we say we do unlimited graphic design, let's say, and it's this price, and you have a 14-day money back guarantee. Are we lying in any way to the client when we present that? Are there any hidden fees? Is there anything that's going to make that client upset? So maybe that's a great thing. If, let's say, we did have hidden fees, which we don't, they might click on that, sign up, and all of a sudden hate us. And now they're spreading negative reviews or just talking to people in a negative way. And we actually did, that creative did a really bad job, not just a bad job, but like a negative job in helping us. So the metrics we look at most would be looking at obviously the click through, looking to see how many people like actually sign up for demos. That's a big metric. How many people sign up, conversions, but also retention and churn. Looking back at those, we track how the people came on and who we're losing. And like if we're losing a lot of clients based from a specific creative or campaign, that's concerning. That means somehow that campaign is not telling them the information they need to know to use us correctly, and we have to go back and update and like look at that again. Another thing we started doing is using AI, and I know that's a big buzzword and everybody's like throwing it around and everything, but one concrete way that we implemented it was when most of the creatives point to a demo. So when you land on our site, we want to get somebody in a call with one of our salespeople. Before AI, you would have where they would summarize what was happening, or we'd have to look through videos and like kind of find out what the client was saying, the potential client. And now we can download all that, and then we have the salespeople run that through ChatGPT, summarize it, put it in a Slack channel for all of marketing to see. And so you basically just have a Slack feed of everything, every demo summarized with the pain points, and ChatGPT does a great job of like saying what they're concerned about, what they want, all of that stuff. And then marketing just goes through that on a weekly basis. And we use that to update our creatives, look at our ads, and make sure we're actually doing an effective job with bringing in these new clients.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the kind of the conversational aspect of it, because you could also, there are plenty of kind of Read AI, I think, and other meeting attendance, recorders that will spit out these AI outputs. They also have, some of them have kind of sentiment meters of like, what was this, a good conversation or a bad one, which could help you also single out the ones that had low sentiment, try to figure out why, implement a change because of that. But it sounds like, Sam, at least some of what you measure has to do with performance data on the client side, right? So let's talk a little bit about performance data. David, that's your bread and butter. That's what you live, eat, and breathe every day, right? So when we're talking about performance data, especially in the world of shifting KPIs, different goals and metrics per client and all this stuff, how do you think about setting those KPIs or identifying the right pieces of data to look at as you're analyzing performance data?
Yeah. Firstly, very nice segue, Mike. So I suppose in the glory days, when it came to performance marketing, it was quite easy, right? You could put reasonable trust in channel level attribution. You could, put reasonable trust in things like ROAS and CPA that are reported out of Facebook and Google, with an understanding that there is going to be some level of overlap. But those days since iOS 14.5 are largely behind us. Whilst you can use things like ROAS and CPA, they are further down the hierarchy of importance now. They are good indicative measures of a channel's level of success, but ultimately they don't really tell the whole picture. So now with our brands and with our clients, we focus on elevating metrics. So first things first, we start with focusing on business level goals. And then we make sure that our customers have a really good understanding of the unit economics of their business and in their marketing. So do they know what their ideal customer acquisition cost is? Do they have a good idea of what their LTV needs to be? What is the ideal MER, their marketing efficiency ratio, which is just a blended ROAS, some people might call it, as it relates to the total sales of the business? And do they have a good understanding of what their required contribution margin is on a day-to-day or a month-to-month or an annual basis? So those are kind of higher up now in our hierarchy of importance. And then we cascade down. And once we have an understanding of those unit level economics, then we can break those down and get a little bit of a better understanding of what our goal ROAS, our goal CPA, and our goal metrics on the ad platform level is. So those unit economic metrics and the business level goals of a brand or an e-commerce business, they all help to give a bit of a clearer picture of business performance in a better way than solely platform level metrics do in the year 2024.
Yeah, for sure. And just to zoom far out, I mean, it kind of breaks down a little bit to profitability, right? Like, what are your profit margins? If you're selling products online, and it costs you, and it costs you a lot to make those products, you don't really have that much money to spend to market that product before it cuts into your margin, right? Whereas if you're able to get your manufacturing and warehousing under control, get those costs down a bit. This is what I mean by so much data. If you really spread out across all of the moving parts, specifically in e-commerce, you start to get to some really complicated numbers, and complicated numbers is what Justin does. So Justin, let's talk. You like the segue there, David? Justin, let's talk about MMM. What is it? First of all, I mean, I think that this is a relatively educational topic for a lot of marketers. I know I myself, who has been working in marketing for over a decade, just started learning about MMM maybe last year, right? So let's just start there. What is media mix modeling?
Mike, the master of segues. I appreciate that. Yeah, so marketing mix modeling, it's honestly become more popular recently. It has been around for a long time. But really the goal is to understand the performance of your marketing relative to all the other business dynamics at play. So when we're building a marketing mix model, not only do we want your sales data, your revenue data by week, day, kind of whatever granularity you can provide. But we're also looking at the marketing activities, your spend, your costs, clicks, impressions, video views, etc. And then we're looking at the external factors. And those are very important to bring into consideration here. We're talking about seasonality, what is the category growth, competition, your distribution or catalog size. All of those factors play into the performance of your brand. And by only looking at the marketing and not really encompassing the other factors that influence your brand, you're really kind of potentially limiting what kind of insights you're getting and the understanding. So for us, we really focus on what is the kind of marginal ROI or the kind of return on that next dollar. So a lot of people think about MMM as, what's my ROI or what's the incrementality of a certain tactic. We, obviously want to understand that, but we really focus on, how do you get the best bang for your buck, right? When you think about the next dollar, you might have a $1.50 ROI on a certain tactic, but is your next dollar actually going to deliver above a 1 ROI or below a 1 ROI? And that's really the question that we want to focus on, is figuring out how to best allocate that budget across all tactics, across all weeks to maximize the value.
Very concise. Well, when it comes to, just a quick follow-up, when it comes to, you mentioned AI being a part of what you do. How does the AI fit into the media mix modeling for Keen?
Yeah, appreciate that question. There's a couple ways that we have adopted AI into our journey and experience. First is we actually use a Bayesian regression approach. And so for those unaware, Bayesian is essentially a way of starting with a prior, or a kind of an expectation of what the tactic would likely, what the impact would likely be, given brands of your size and your industry, of your growth level, of your profitability, margin, et cetera, et cetera. So we come in with a general understanding of what the likely impact of these tactics should be, and we have that because we have over $4 billion of investments that we've evaluated across hundreds of companies, but also we have extensive academic studies that we've incorporated in. So it really kind of gives us a good starting point that we're able to then add onto or refine using your performance data. So that's where we actually bring in the brand's data to understand kind of where does it differ from the norms to really get a better tune and to get that in quickly. And it helps overcome some of the data quality challenges you might have, or if you're even thinking about a tactic that you've never done before, right? We can at least give you a starting point to think about, what do other brands of your size, of your kind of life cycle invest in this type of tactic?
Gotcha. So anything to add there, Sam, David, or comments on MMM?
Yeah, I think MMM is a I suppose methodology that's been around for a long time and probably had its original heyday in like the 70s and 80s, but ultimately wasn't particularly accessible to most brands. And what's great about operators like Keen is that it's now accessible to a lot broader breadth of brands and businesses, because with the application of AI and machine learning and software, rather than a team of people putting together an MMM model, it makes it the barrier to entry much lower. And for us as a business, as we have and brands have less trust in the channel level ROAS, the channel level return on investment, the channel level CPA, being able to lean on and have accessibility to a tool like Keen to help us model our data a little bit more accurately in a slightly different way to how many e-commerce businesses today are kind of used to, is really powerful. And I think it's an area that we are trying to bring a lot more brands down the path of, because it's an area that they wouldn't necessarily know to look, but tools like and companies like Keen have made it so much more accessible for so many more brands and businesses.
Definitely. Yeah. I wanted to jump into, thank you for that, David and Justin. Really, really interesting stuff. I think we could probably talk about media mix modeling for the whole session, but we won't do that. Sam, I wanted to jump over to you really quick and talk a little bit about kind of some challenges that you may see. We talked a little bit in your intro there about how your clients measure the effectiveness of your creative that you create. So when we talk about this, I'm talking about, you guys could be making Instagram reels, TikTok videos. You could be making static display ads. Those are all measured a bit differently. How do brands kind of get, and you mentioned, you can measure click-through rates, you can measure conversions. Those are pretty standard ways of measuring, the effectiveness of these. Are there any kind of more granular, interesting data points that people can use maybe in video specifically, since it's so different from measuring, in a lot of ways, measuring the effectiveness of static creative? Are there any differences there between the two?
So one thing we do and a lot of our clients do is, so one of the top categories is social media posts. That's what a lot of clients run and use Flocksy for. And one of the ways is looking at the engagement of the post, whether it's likes, comments, shares, all that stuff. So it's not a lot of this time when you're videos and social media posts, it's about brand awareness. It's not as much about the actual conversions. It's about getting your brand out there. So I looking and seeing how much it resonates with your audience, especially if you have followers and those people have used you before, and seeing how many of those followers are liking the post, sharing it, commenting, is a great way to kind of see what people think of your brand. And then when you're like promoting a video, let's say on YouTube or Facebook, and they allow comments, you watch those comments carefully, because everybody always gets those like kind of nasty comments, or somebody throwing a comment about like how they don't like you or something like that, or it's a competitor. But there are actual constructive comments there saying something like, I was unhappy. And that's a lot of clients are using that as a way to reach out to you, and not the traditional Trustpilot, SiteJabber, those ways. They're reaching out on social media, they're commenting on a video, they're down voting a video or a social media post. So I think looking at that engagement is really important to kind of monitor how well your brand is doing with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. It gets, especially when you talk about comments, and it just becomes kind of, I mean, I'm sure AI helps a little bit in certain areas, but it just becomes difficult to, because it is kind of still a manual process to go find negative comments and tease those out, categorize them, figure out what to do about them. There's still a little bit of kind of manual work there, but it is super important. I think in a lot of cases, my theory is the harder the data is to find, usually the more useful it is, right? And so in a lot of cases, that ends up being the case, which Justin leads into mixed media modeling and how it's able to kind of dig out those insights in an automated way. But David, in the performance space, D2C brands face a lot of these challenges, specifically in data. You have, as I mentioned before, you have in our poll, you have site analytics data, you have shopping cart data, you've got your performance metrics, it's just a whole myriad. You've got your own supply chain metrics, right? You've got all kinds of your business data. What are the data challenges that are kind of most facing most brands nowadays as you look at the, kind of Finch's client base and just across the market that people are having trouble with?
Yeah, and actually, just to piggyback on Sam's point as well there, before I get into that as well, one thing in a previous life, I worked in quite heavily in paid social as well. So for video ads in particular, for us, one thing that we implemented a couple of years back was trying to measure not just like the thumb stop rate, but sort of the hook rate, getting people to watch at least the first 3 seconds of videos, but also then the hold rate. So getting people to watch the measure of the number of people who were getting from 0 to 15 seconds in the video as well. So the hook rate tells you how good you are at actually grabbing that initial attention, and the hold rate then theoretically tells you how effective you are at holding that attention, and how relevant your audience are as well with your creative. That was an interesting one for us to measure, particularly as it relates to conversion rate and CTR, and using those as kind of cascading metrics down the customer journey. But it's a challenging field, and a little bit of a difficult one to totally quantify.
And you can see, and we'll jump back into that question I just asked a second, but you can see where that becomes really important and really can really inform the design process, where this video, when we can get people to stop and watch it, they watch at least half of it, but we're having trouble getting them to stop and watch it. What can we do in the first 3 seconds? And that gives you a test. You can now test different opening 3-second hooks, right, for the same video, or vice versa. If people are getting through the first 3 seconds but not staying until that 15-second mark, what is it about that second chunk of video that's losing people? It at least gives you something to measure and try to test and get better at, right? So exactly. Really, really interesting stuff there. So David, just jumping back to that, Justin, anything to add? I don't want to step on anybody else. That was that was not the way to go. No, you're good. Okay. So
nothing to add over.
David, thinking about all those different that myriad of data that people have to look at specifically in the e-commerce space and really selling anything online, what are the challenges that are most difficult to overcome as they look at all of the data across these sets?
Yeah, well, there are a couple, right? So the first is that there is an ever-growing myriad of disparate sources and channels that marketers and business people in e-commerce businesses feel like they need to be paying attention to. So there's their paid performance data, there's their shopping cart data, there's their site analytics data, there's their SMS marketing data, their email marketing data, their SEO. I could go on and on and on and on here. So the difficulty of that is that, you've got upwards of 10, 12, 15, some brands will have 20 different data sources that they need to pay attention to. But what takes precedence? What's the most important? The first step in making that decision is bringing it all together in one place. So the first challenge is centralizing all your data sources into one place to look at them alongside each other, to see how different channels interact, to see how everything impacts the bottom line revenue of the business. The other challenge is kind of what we touched on already, is that when you look at any performance channel, whether it's email attribution, Google Analytics, Facebook, any ad platform, they're all ultimately, they're in it for themselves. They're all grading their own homework, right? So it's in their interest to attribute favorably to their own channel, to give themselves a good ROAS, to give themselves a lower CPA. That's why there's a lot of kind of finagling and modeling around attribution these days, native to the ad platforms, that isn't exactly the most transparent. So the biggest challenge then, as we look at those two pieces, is what data do they trust? Do they trust last click on GA4? Do they trust some of the attribution modeling on the ad platforms, which ultimately is very inconsistent across ad platforms? It's 7-day click on Facebook, it's 30-day click on Google, it's 14-day view through on DSP. So that's one of the major challenges. And then how do they then combine all of that and make decisions based on that data? So the first part of it is that they can see what's happened, and they have to decipher what has happened based on that data and what actually drove results. But then when that's hard enough, they also have to decide what to do next. So, okay, I think I've figured out what channels have given us the biggest contribution, but how do I apply that to my future strategy? So the what next becomes the next big challenge. So to kind of summarize, it's this disparity of channels, it's the centralization, it's the trust of what data source, it's the understanding of the different attribution models, and then it's making decisions based on what's happened, how it happened, and then what to do next. And I think that's where we try and add a little bit of context in our tool. By our team are constantly contextualizing data and have a good understanding of it. But then we can also lean on tools like Keen and MMM tools and MTA tools to try and triangulate where the attribution comes from and where the impact of channels comes from as well. So those are kind of, there's a lot of challenges around data, quite evidently, but those are kind of the biggest summary of them. It's the disparity of sources, the centralization of them, and then the decision making and understanding of what metrics and what channels to pay attention to.
Yeah, and there's kind of a mix between, once you get that data, you got it all. Okay, great. We use Finch. We plugged in all our data. It's in the tool. Great. Finch has all these awesome experts that are going to look at it for me and help me understand it, right? Now, the other way you can do that, or partially, and what even our experts can do to supplement their expertise, is something like what Justin does, right? Where, okay, we've got all your data. Here it all is. What does it mean, right? And so, Justin, could you give us some examples? Maybe let's jump into some examples. I like talking about examples. Just some examples of some interesting clients maybe you've had that had these weird, crazy sources of data, and you're able to help them make sense of it.
Yeah, I'd love to dive into some examples. I think I'd like to start with just that we often use the saying that perfect is the enemy of good enough. We want to make sure that we're getting as good of data as possible, but our goal is to make better decisions. And you don't need perfect data to make better decisions, but better data helps you make better decisions. And so, much along what David had said, really it's about trying to make sure that you have access to that data. It's actionable data. It's not siloed in different systems and formats. Just because there has been a proliferation of so many different channels, it makes it hard to get all that information together. So, really just getting structure and understanding how you're going to use that data is an important first step. And then it's really deciding, what data do you want to have confidence in and to rely on. And so as a perfect example, when we are building a marketing mix model, we have our Bayesian priors, our starting points. And we can actually use those priors and inform them based off of studies that a brand has done. Right, so that could be an incrementality test that they've done, an A/B test that showed a certain lift around a certain tactic. It could be around a platform attribution result, but again, there's a lot of hesitancy around that given how the attribution is being modeled for each of those platforms and how they're evaluating each other. But the important aspect is that when you're bringing in this information, it's not an all or nothing approach. And so especially in the Bayesian, we like to use kind of what we call a range of uncertainty. And so you can bring in results around a certain tactic. Let's just say you did a incrementality study on your CTV, and you have a general sense of kind of how much lift or impact it has had. If you feel very confident in that results, then you can actually, in the interface, we have a portion where you can just say, hey, my ROI in this tactic, I expect is somewhere between 150 and 175, right? Because that's what the study came back with. However, you can actually say, we've done a couple of different tests. We've gotten some range of performance results. And so we're actually going to say somewhere between 50 cents and 250, because we've kind of seen a little bit on the high end and the low end. And ultimately, what that's really doing is just kind of giving the model a starting point to evaluate and to kind of check what the data is saying against that, so that it can it can get to that signal a lot quicker and easier than if we kind of said, hey, you know what, it could be any impact in the world. And so to me, it's really about just figuring out what is the information that's going to inform your business objectives, what do you have the most confidence around, and kind of how can you use that to inform your next decision.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like, I mean, there's a lot of complicated stuff going on there, obviously, but at the end of the day, you're looking for those kind of juicy KPIs, the ones that actually make sense and measure the success of your business, and finding the standard deviation there so you know what to expect, right? And then measuring within that kind of expectation what individual tactics can actually. Now, this takes a lot of patience, right? You have to be able to isolate, run A/B tests correctly, understand what you're testing and what it's supposed to be doing, right? Which is where, just expertise and experience comes into play. But having that data available is super important. Great. We've blown through the panel discussion. So great insights from everybody. Thank you for all of those awesome comments and just education. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff I'm learning. We'll jump into some Q&A really quickly here as we kind of wrap it up. We'll do about 15 minutes of Q&A. I was going to actually, this is an interesting one for Sam. Sam, over the last year plus, we've really seen an explosion of UGC, user-generated content. And I think, this sprung up from influencers, right? I think marketers saw the efficacy of influencers and getting them to buy things, from just wearing it on their channel or whatever they're doing. I've never really dug into this. How do you effectively measure UGC and whether it's working or not? Is it pure conversions? It's just a raw dollar amount that's created there, or is it get more granular than that?
So I think it's a mix of both. Like I said, with the user-generated content, with like social media, a lot of it is brand awareness, is trying to just get your brand out there, and it is difficult to track a lot of this back to a dollar amount. So one way of like tracking it is by setting up demos, making it easy for the customer to find out more about you once they land on your website. So with all this, with anything like that, it's different. You can look at the engagement, you can look at the comments, you can look at all that. But like you mentioned, Mike, it's difficult to go through all that data. But that kind of shows how well it's doing, how well people are responding to your brand. Views are a great way of kind of seeing how many people are viewing it, but even that can be skewed if it's like a bunch of young people and your target age is 25 to 40 or something. So I think what we do is the engagement, and then trying to get as many people into demos as possible, and then trying to pick their brain and find out what they actually are looking for. And then, like I said before, using AI to dumb that down for us and make it so we can then continue to use that data. So we use a lot of it as data just to get leads into our system, and the conversions, if that happens, that's great, but that isn't the end all be all for us.
Yeah, measuring brand awareness has been the bane of marketers' existence for quite a while, right? And actually, media mix modeling kind of sprung up from that, actually. Early days of TV advertising, trying to figure out what's effective and what's not effective in what markets. That's kind of the origin story there. But Justin, I wanted to jump to a question for you. What's the best way to incorporate MMM into your team early on so you can get a start to look at what to do next? I mean, if we have brands out here who are like, man, this MMM thing sounds really cool, I want to give it a shot, other than calling Justin at Keen, what should they do? What are those first steps that you have clients do right off the bat to get in a good place to actually be able to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're always welcome to give us a call here at Keen. We'll always pick up the phone there. But there's plenty of options, especially now with the proliferation of Robin and other LLMs. People can start to build marketing mix models. It's becoming more common. But at the end of the day, the goal that you want to establish is, really what is the objective of the brand and what are you hoping this MMM will do? Right? We all want to drive more revenue and more sales. And that can be the focus and the kind of what you're optimizing for on your MMM. But honestly, we've had brands that we actually are optimizing around awareness, right? And what tactics are actually driving awareness for them or household penetration, and less so focused on profitability. So really what we always encourage customers to think of is, what is your objective? If you can, solve 1 to 2 pain points, what would those be? And then given that particular objective, what is the frame and what is the data that we need to collect to really understand that? And so, if you want to understand about your awareness, you need to, have some type of measurement of your awareness over time, as well as kind of the activities you're trying to do to drive that awareness. And so ultimately, it's really about creating that frame. What are we trying to solve for, and what are the kind of inputs that would be helpful in knowing more about that topic?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's such an interest. Like I just love the topic. Like the MMM topic is so just because it's new. I think to me a little bit more so than anything else. But there's so many moving parts. It's really interesting. David, you mentioned earlier on in the I think at the top of the webinar here about Finch having some collaboration tools built in. Talk to us about how to improve the team collaboration there around data so that they can make the better decisions. Do you have any examples or anything like that that you could share where people have really seen a result as just being able to open up their organization and have people talk to each other about what they're seeing and what they're measuring?
Yeah, well, I think our CEO Lee has a phrase that data without context is just numbers, and it's people can often distort to their biases when they're looking at figures on a dashboard. Like our team kind of can understand the context around the overall performance of a channel, for example, looking at the last 30 days and understand, let's say, why there was a dip on Google or why there was a dip on a certain channel here or there. And it might not be something that alarms them, or they might see an opportunity. Whereas a customer might go in there, see a dip, see a drop in conversions for whatever reason, and maybe not see the full picture, not understand that we actually launched a new branding campaign that day, for example, and as a result, our ROAS dropped or our overall MER dropped, something like that. So that like disparity between, and that like delta of understanding and context between a client and even internally in teams, that could be the marketing team has that deep understanding, but someone, the CFO or the CEO, might not have that level of context. So contextualization around that is really important. So in our tool, what we have is kind of ubiquitous collaboration and communication throughout the tool. There's the ability to add comments, annotations on dashboards. There's discussion streams. We can share longer form blogs as stories in our tool, and then we have presentation elements as well. And what that enables then is a really easy in context way for our team, or if it's being used internally by a brand, by a marketing team, to just drop a quick note and say, hey, just wanted to just flag this. There was a little bit of a drop here, you might notice. The reason for that was because of X. We launched a new brand campaign, we're testing some new creatives, whatever the case is, there's a multitude. Or there's a spike because we honed in on a new keyword, for example. So the ability of team members to both add explanations, maybe write a longer form story as an explanation, or an opportunity, for example, if they see an opportunity to double down on some success in a longer form story, means that any team member can jump in and in one place see the context all around that data. They don't just see a dashboard with dips and peaks that might not make a huge amount of sense to them, or they might have a limited understanding of. Around that data, they also see commentary, contextualization, collaboration between team members. So when they go in there, they see the full picture, and it means then that everyone has a full understanding. There's no late night text messages from a manager or a CEO as to why something happened or why there's a spike or a dip. There's no panicked mornings waking up to your messages or your emails with someone sending an email with 5 exclamation marks or question marks in the subject line, because you can add that context and everyone can see it, and it's all centralized in one place, meaning that everyone has an understanding of the data at all times, for want of a better phrase, and everyone can collaborate and communicate in one place. Which also means that you get away from the idea of someone sending an email being like, hey, just saw that chart on our dashboard, there was a dip, and then you're thinking, what chart was that? There's about 5 of them. So adding that ability to collaborate, communicate in context of the actual dashboard or charts or reports or whatever the case is, it makes everyone's lives a whole lot easier. And it means that you're not wasting time trying to explain or backtrack. You're able to be proactive and you're able to move forward and double down on opportunity react to like drops and things like that. So that's where the contextualization, the collaboration element around data is really important and is something that we really try and focus on.
Yeah, Sam, I don't know if you thank you, David. That makes a lot of sense. I've seen what David mentioned, stories. That's a really actually a technical term for something that's in the Finch tool. It's kind of like a blog post. You can drag reports into it. You can you can type out explanations, drag in different charts and data points, and really kind of build out a blog post of here's the story of what happened, right? When you that way when somebody sees it, and you can connect those stories to certain charts and graphs and dashboards so that anybody who's looking at it who needs an explanation of what's happening, they can go and look at it. It's really cool. Sam, I don't know if you have, we're getting like a spooky, it's almost Halloween season, we're getting like a spooky windy sound from you every once in a while. I don't know if you have a window open, but it's actually kind of setting the mood. But I wanted to jump in. We've got a few minutes left here and just see if you guys had, let's talk about the future a little bit. What's next in your space, right? And Sam, I don't know if you want to start us off. Do you have any insights into kind of what's coming down the pipe, what people should be looking for coming up in the creative space?
Yes, thank you, Mike. And David, I've never freaked out about seeing data that didn't have context. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sam would never send a late night text message. No way.
Yeah, I think that's happened to every single person on Earth. You see some data come in, there's a spike or something, you're freaking out, and then you go back and forth, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I overreacted way too much. They sent me a message in Slack, but I didn't check Slack. I should have. Yeah, so with the creative space, we're seeing, again, goes back to AI, but we're seeing a lot of AI being implemented in these different tools, whether it's Photoshop, Canva, Figma, and we're seeing other tools like Figma become even more popular with like web developers and stuff like that. So it's really important if you are a designer or if you're an agency or if you're even a client creating your own content that you are using these tools. AI is not going to replace us, but AI is going to make things a lot faster. So if you're still over there drawing something by hand and AI can make that 10 times faster, you are going to be behind the curve. So I think making sure you are checking and seeing what AI tools your company can use, or what we do at Flocksy is the team has an AI hour every week where they learn different tools they can share. It's kind of like a fun, laid back, let's just have an hour of learning new things. That's one way we implemented it. We also have KPIs and stuff to kind of measure the productivity, to try speeding things up. But it is really easy to be left behind and get left behind when it comes to graphic design and everything if other competitors or companies are using AI to speed up the process and creating 10 creatives instead of one, creating 10 times the content instead of one. So just be aware of that, and I think it's really important to keep watching what AI has in store for the future.
Gotcha. Yeah, and volume is very creative, especially if you're doing performance marketing. Volume of creative is important. You need to be able to constantly be testing, which means you have to constantly be creating creative, right? So, David, do you have any kind of thoughts about the near future of performance marketing?
Yeah, I think it's we should probably have instigated some sort of shot rule for every time AI was mentioned on this, but that might have gotten out of hand pretty quickly. No, I do think it's probably an implementation of AI, but in different ways. I suppose from our agency perspective, it's applying methods to more efficiently communicate with our clients. So one thing that we're implementing is, let's say, a monthly roundup of performance, what was done on an account, what's coming up, how performance was, just a really quick overview. Similarly, recaps of calls to summarize action items, all that sort of stuff. The idea we have around monthly roundups is that to make them more efficient, we could just build a GPT or an AI agent to summarize the changelog of Google Ads, summarize the changelog of all the ad channels that we manage, summarize the completed tasks in Asana or whatever task management system you use, summarize that all into a narrative, and the CSM, the specialist, our team members, or a marketing manager can summarize and add context to those completed items, and then that can be shared with the team. Because one of the big challenges and issues that we hear for brands as they work with agencies is that they have limited insight into what their agency is doing for them day to day in a way that they wouldn't if it was a team member working with them in-house, because it's a lot easier just to either if you're in an office with a team member, evidently, but also if it's a team member who's on your team, you're slacking with them, you're probably having calls with them every day, you're communicating on a regular basis. So to bridge that gap of working with an agency, we would try, and our plan is to use AI to build the efficiency and enable even better and more transparent communication and collaboration with customers. From an analytics perspective, we would also, the obvious application is adding a kind of an AI co-pilot to any analytics tool, just to help contextualize data in a probably a more automated way, in a more self-serve way, just so that, if someone sees a spike, they can quite easily ask a question. And similarly, that's something that we're building in our system, is enabling simple language questions to be interpreted and converted into queries around your data. So that would just makes everyone's lives more easy, or more straightforward when it comes to the contextualization of data, not requiring, having to wait on an answer from someone or, wait for an explanation. And then from a services perspective as an agency business, ensuring that we utilize the tools that are available to us in this day and age to better contextualize and be more transparent with our customers, to show them, this is what we are doing for you day to day, and this is what worked and this was what didn't.
Yeah, and it's getting more. I mean, it seems like every day, or at least every week, I read about some new marketing tool or some new data tool or some new AI usage, and it's just getting. Yeah, Sam, I like the idea of kind of an AI hour where you don't work, just go look for AI tools and talk about what you find. I think that's really useful. But Justin, the hour is getting late. Let's hear about kind of the future, just to end us up here. Kind of what do you see in the near future for MMM, or just the data space in general?
Yeah, absolutely. In MMM in general, and especially for Keen, I think what we're really focused on is how do we enable our customers to make smarter decisions faster. We've really seen AI as a kind of an avenue to help, be a conduit for that. We've actually introduced recently AI narration on all of our charts and data visualizations. So within the application, whenever, you build a model, you get all these data visualizations, charts, tables. Sometimes, as Dave mentioned earlier, the context is just as important as the data and the numbers. And so the AI narration is something that we've enabled our customers just to one click. They'll get an AI kind of narration over all the charts, as well as kind of a summary at the top of kind of what are the main findings and learnings. So, we found that as a really good opportunity. We are actually we're going to be releasing pretty shortly AI data mapping. Everyone hates data mapping and kind of working through the structuring. So we've actually built a functionality that once you've uploaded the data, the AI will automatically try and map out how that data should structure to each of your variables in the application. I think right now we've tested it around 65-70% accuracy. It'll get better as it learns, but the goal is just, how do we, prevent you from having to do so many clicks, right? How do we prevent you from having to take so much time in order to get to that decision quicker? So we're also doing some data visualization testing where the user can just, give an audible prompt or a written prompt to like, hey, I want to see XYZ by, these quarters over these time periods, and it'll go ahead and actually create that for you. And so there's a couple of different ways. And then the final piece we're trying to crack right now is just AI model QCing. How do you help customers develop a better, more robust model using AI, given all the context and information it has around kind of what the model might be missing, what other models like this profile have, et cetera, et cetera.
Looking forward to you figuring that out. Let me know. I'm really interested. But if we didn't get to, that's going to do it for today. Thank you for joining us, guys. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll have our experts write down their thoughts and get back to you guys. We'll do a follow-up, usually a LinkedIn post, but we could put it in an email as well. But I want to thank our incredible panels here. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. I learned a lot. Thank you for being on for this. And thank you to the guests, for all the attendees, for joining us for our final session of this 5-part series. We're going to package all this awesomeness up into an ebook and some other goodies for everyone to look into. Follow us and all the great brands that we featured on this webinar series on LinkedIn and other socials. You'll definitely see the stuff as we share it. And a huge thank you to everyone who participated and attended all of these events. Now, get out there and get growing. See you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.